Hello there, podcast, and if you're listening to this on YouTube, of course, nice having you back here. Also, we are gonna look at a comment from Christina and then an email from Isabel, and I think lot to go over here, lots to learn from these. From this input here. So, as I often like to point out, nothing here is medical advice, but just me sharing my thoughts. Then I hope that this will be helpful to Christina and Isabel and anybody else out there that is tuning in as well. Okay, so with that said, let's take a look here. This is a comment from Christina on Insomnia Insight number 243. I've had insomnia on and off for 10 years due to anxiety. I'm on an antidepressant. I'm on Xanax to help me sleep. I still don't sleep the full 8 hours. What technique should I use with the Xanax so I can stop using the Xanax as soon as possible? Doctors before have prescribed Klonopin, which lasts longer, and I was able to sleep all night with it. My doctor, for some reason, will only prescribe Xanax. I've always overcome my anxiety. This time it seems worse, but I'm sure every time seems worse than the previous. Good point, that last one. And okay, first of all, Christina, thanks so much for taking the time to comment here. A lot of people sure have very similar questions. So, questions like yours are super helpful. Now, I think the first thing I wanted to comment on was this one. By the way, I've talked on a similar subject very recently. I think it was episode 237. 237 is I'm gonna echo a lot of the thoughts that I had in 237 in this episode. So for you, Christina, that might be a good one to check out as well. So going back to, I still don't sleep the full 8 hours. Now that's, you're bringing up something that is super important. There are countless of people that I've interacted with on this channel, and I've seen in my clinic. Have insomnia because they're trying to sleep 8 hours. I have no clue where that 8 hour that number comes from. I've seen references back like 300 years ago. People said, one should sleep 8 hours. We always hear we should sleep like a third of our lives. We're sleeping, etc. When you look at studies, they show that people that have no trouble sleeping, they think they sleep 7 hours. If you ask somebody with no trouble sleeping, how much do you sleep? They'll be like, about 7 hours, but they have no clue. What they are doing is that they're just thinking like, oh, I go to bed 11, get up at 6. Yeah, I sleep 7 hours. It's not true. Most people, when you check this like objectively, most people sleep about 6 hours. Not only in Western society, even in like Bolivia, Tanzania, like in societies within Bolivia and Tanzania where they don't even have electricity, like hunter-gatherer type of society, pre-industrial societies, no artificial light. They just they sleep about 6 hours and a little bit more, just as in the Western world. So I think the first point here, which is so important, is we should not chase those 8 hours. And then the question becomes, okay, so how much should I be sleeping? Well, the best answer to that is really how do you feel sleepy during the day? Do you tend to fall asleep during the day? Do you have trouble staying awake during the day after sleeping a good amount at night? Well, then you may need more sleep. If you're like, no, I wake up before my alarm, I can't nap even if I wanted to, that means you're probably not very sleep deficient. You probably have more trouble with getting good quality sleep, consolidated sleep, etc. So I think the first point here is we should never focus on getting a specific number of hours of sleep. That just leads to chasing that number, clock watching, anxiety, and etc. We should really focus on how we feel during the day. And if a lot of people are like, I feel great if I get 5.5 hours of sleep and I feel function well. Other people need a little bit more, and etc. But again, the goal should always be to feel good, regardless of how many hours you sleep during the night. The goal should always be to feel good. When that becomes the goal, that really detracts from like clock watching and like anxiety about like not getting enough, etc. And it's really helpful. So that's one important point here. Now, going on to like the second question here, or like the second point here, what technique should I use with the Xanax so I can stop using the Xanax as soon as possible? Well, here's one of those where like you have to talk with your prescribing doctor, of course. But I want to share kind of my general points here when it comes to somebody that is using a medication and has insomnia. It's like sometimes somebody's using a medication and they're actually sleeping well, and they don't want to come off, and there's somebody prescribing it. Well, then maybe there's nothing you need to do at that point. Then you have other scenarios where somebody is, let's say, using a medication and they're sleeping pretty good, but they want to come off, or the scenario where somebody's using a medication, still not sleeping great, and they want to come off. So let's go over all those scenarios. Well, number one is that if somebody's taking medication, no, they're happy with it, the prescriber's happy with it, then maybe nothing needs to be done there. Now, however, if somebody's taking medication and they're sleeping good, but they want to come off of it, then the first step becomes like transferring sleep confidence, meaning what, in my opinion, what medications really do, and what the real problem medications is, that they erode sleep confidence. And one of the people that I really look up to, I think she's super knowledgeable, insightful, is Sasha Stevens. She's written this The Effortless Sleep Method and other books. The way she describes this is as follows, and I'm basically just quoting her idea here, which I think is so good, is the problem with medications are these. Like, you have trouble sleeping and you see a doctor, let's say. When that doctor says, take this medication, a couple of things are happening. One, there's this implicit message that something is wrong with you. Something is wrong with you, and you need this thing to sleep. There's so many wrongs in there. Like, first of all, it kind of feeds this notion that a lot of people with trouble sleeping have, that there's something wrong with them, which there isn't. Like, in fact, that belief that something is wrong with my sleep switch, my brain, my system, is part of like what feeds insomnia. So when somebody says, take this medication, they're feeding that notion. And also, even worse, they're saying like, you need this external thing to sleep. So that those are two big problems. But that's just the beginning, because what happens next is either that medication, like, the person taking it feels like it didn't make any changes. Well, then that's a problem, because then that person feels like something's really wrong with me. Not even medications can, quote unquote, make me sleep. Or they feel like, oh, that now I'm sleeping better, which is often even worse, because then that person now truly believes something's wrong with them, and their confidence, their belief that they can sleep by themselves is crushed. It's eroded. It's like it goes away. That's the real problem. So when somebody's taking medication and they're doing well on the medication, but they want to come off of the medication, the first step is transfer of confidence. It's like getting that person to understand that throughout the month, weeks, years, decades that they've been taking this medication, that medication has not made them sleep. It's been their own natural sleep drive. Their own bodies have always produced that sleep. Yes, medications can take away some anxiety. They can calm you down. They can make it easier to fall asleep to some degree, but the sleep is always produced by your own body. So for somebody that's taking medication, doing well, but want to come off of it, first step, start believing in yourself. Start realizing that it was always you yourself that produced the sleep. That's a huge first step. And once somebody's like, you know what, I think that is the case. Like I realized that mostly this medication I just believe that it will make me sleep, and that's like really what it does to me. Once you start realizing that, once people start realizing that, then it becomes easier to taper off and come off of it. And now, and then we get to like the third scenario here, where somebody is taking medication and they feel like it's kind of helping me. If I don't take it, I don't sleep at all, but I want to come off it. Well, again, I'm not giving anybody advice here. You have to talk to your prescriber, etc. But I'll share what I've do and what I feel about this scenario is the following. That actually I want to sneak one in there, and this is again, I've talked about this before. I think it's so important. Like a lot of people are like, well, if I stop taking medication, then I don't sleep at all, and a lot of people feel that is proof that they need a medication to sleep. Well, it's interesting. I hear the same thing about people on CPAP, like these breathing machines we use for sleep apnea. People that have trouble breathing sleep, they also say, if I don't have my CPAP machine, I don't sleep at all. And I think it's the same thing. It's like you've gotten into this like habits and beliefs have formed where you believe so strongly that you cannot sleep with this thing, that if you don't take it, then it becomes like, okay, let's see, am I going to sleep tonight? I didn't take my medications. I probably won't, or maybe I will. What if I don't? Should I double dose? Should I not take it? Will I ever get off of it? Will I lose my ability to sleep? Blah, blah, blah. That whole thinking process is what causes that rebound insomnia, that complete lack of sleep that follows after one doesn't use your CPAP or stops taking medication. So just a comment on that one. So going back to the scenario where somebody is like taking medication, feels like it helps somehow, but not really, and they want to come off it. I feel like the first step is to get to a point where you're sleeping well with the medication. I feel it's generally hard to do both, use like cognitive behavioral therapy techniques and come off of medication at the same time. And by the way, if you're taking medication and you do cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, that works. If you're not taking medication and you do CBTI, that works. Where it's really where medication can really sabotage is if they're used conditionally. If somebody's like, I don't want to take my medication, I'm going to try not to take it and see what happens. That leads to self-monitoring. That leads to like, okay, it's 10, I'm still okay, but now it's 11 and I haven't fallen asleep. Now it's 12, I haven't fallen. Maybe I should take the medication, maybe not, but I really don't want to. That's a problem. So, medications are really best used, in my opinion, again, not any medical advice here, just sharing my opinion, not conditionally, but either not taken at all or taken like every single night at the same time. So for somebody that using a medication but has trouble sleeping still, what I do in my clinic is I say, well, let's do this. Take your medication at a given time. Let's say, I'm just going to spit something out there, like take it at 10:30 p.m. and don't go to bed before 11 and get up at 6 and stay busy during the day. And then once that person is like, now I'm actually regularly sleeping good, then it's time to kind of like go down on the medication. That's how I do it in my clinic. So let's see if there's anything else. I think that was it, really. I hope this was helpful to you, Christina, and anybody else that is tuning in. And by the way, sleep addicts, thanks for chiming in this thread here, and everybody else for commenting. This is super helpful, as I often like to point out. And now, I am gonna open my email here, and we have a message from Isabel. Let's read it. Hi, Daniel. I watch your show and the insomnia tips have been very helpful. At least I feel like I have hope in my battle against insomnia. I started experiencing trouble sleeping about 2 months ago. Now, it all happened suddenly, and I'm still figuring out what caused it. Some say it's because I'm anemic. Some say it's because I started using the blue light blockers at work during the day for 2 weeks prior to the insomnia, and I was watching TV series late at night without blue light blockers right after, and this probably damaged my circadian rhythm and internal clock. My insomnia is so bad that at this point I don't even know if it's worth to identify the reason, nor I think I could know for sure. I was a good sleeper prior to these last month. I've been working with a sleep coach who's really good, and I've been able to get at least 2 hours of sleep using CBTI for insomnia and sleep restriction. Oh, cool. I have dreams during the night and I can remember them. Is that a good thing? Can you dream without hitting deep sleep? ? If I have dreams, why do I feel still so not rested, with pressure in my head and super dizzy during the day? Like a ton of bricks hit my head and I really feel tired I feel like I do not sleep at all. It's really tough. I've done sleep restriction for about 1 full month, no major results. In fact, I still get nights with no sleep, that I wake up several times at night. My sleep efficiency is about 40% according to my sleep diary, and the hours I can recap I slept for the most part are super confusing to identify if I slept or not. But then again, there are dreams, and I read you cannot dream without sleep. Is that correct? Also, my sleep window is 6 hours. If I'm sleeping about 2, is that too long of a window? Sometimes the window gets larger because I get up 40 minutes on average past my wake-up time. I believe I may have to be more strict with this super hard sleep restriction. Daniel, please let me know your insights and if possible, how to recuperate my sleep with this therapy. Should I restrict more hours? What else can you advise? All right, so several things here that we should talk about, and again, kind of pointing out here, as you mentioned the word device in this email, Isabel. Not this, whatever I'm saying here is not advice to you, or specific to you, or medical advice to you, or anything like that. I'm just want to share kind of general thoughts and comments on this that I hope will be helpful to you, and it's up to you if you feel like what we're saying is something you should be trying or adhering to or not. Now, let's start from the very top, you said, I feel like I have hope in my battle against insomnia. Having hope is great. Everybody should have that. In fact, I think for anyone that is like committed to sleeping better and is willing to put in the work and learning and being open to question their own beliefs and things like that, odds are very, very good. I feel like basically everyone who doesn't give up ends up sleeping better. So I think it's great to have hope. Now, in my battle against insomnia, a lot of people say exactly this, like my bed has become a battlefield, or I'm struggling, I'm battling, I'm fighting it. And that is completely understandable, but an important thing is to start not thinking of it as a battle. If we think about it as a battle or a struggle or a fight or things like that, then that just makes the insomnia stronger, because that's kind of what it wants. It wants our attention. It wants us to try things. It wants us to, it wants us to engage with it. And only when we start disengaging is when we really make progress. And I think as we, if you follow my channel, you'll understand what I mean with disengaging. But basically it's things like, spending less time in bed, focusing less on insomnia, not trying to figure it out, etc. So, and we'll comment more about that in a second. But yeah, just wanted to mention that. Now, I started having trouble sleeping about 2 months ago, and it all happened suddenly. And that's another good thing. 2 months in the insomnia world is relatively short. 2 months is a long time to not sleep well. I totally get that. Even a night not sleeping well is affects us. But generally speaking, if somebody has had trouble sleeping for 20 years, it's like, okay, this is probably going to take a while for this person to get better, versus somebody who has had trouble sleeping 2 months. So I think that's I always try to be positive. I think that's something that is a positive. Now, I think you said here that maybe it's not even worth trying to figure out why I have insomnia. I think that's a huge insight, and as I think I've said already 3 times today, but it's so important, is when people try to figure out why they have trouble sleeping, that feeds the insomnia. Because again, insomnia kind of cannot survive without attention. If we're not even thinking about why we have trouble sleeping, if we don't try to figure it out or research it, then it becomes like the insomnia starts going away. So I think you're really onto something when you say maybe I shouldn't even figure it out. That's huge. So I really think I think that's pretty much what I want to say. Trying to figure it out really blocks progress. And when we start saying I don't know why it happened, and I'm not going to try to figure out, that's a huge step forward. Okay, now, I was happy to hear that you have a sleep coach, and that you're just using CBTI. I think that's a great start, and it can take a while. I mean, some people see progress in the first 1 to 2 weeks. Other people, it can take several weeks before things really start getting better. But yeah, so I'm happy you have somebody, and know that it can take a lot of time. Now, I have dreams during the night and I can remember them. Is that a good thing? Can you dream without hitting deep sleep? Dreams are very interesting because some people, when they start sleeping better, for example, when they have sleep apnea, they can't breathe well in sleep, and you start treating them with a CPAP machine, they're like, oh, I'm dreaming again. And that is because they're getting more REM sleep, which is very different from deep sleep. And we'll talk about that in a second. But REM sleep is kind of your mind is very active, and it happens in the late part of the night, and that's where we have like the most kind of vivid, strong dreams. But so again, dreaming can indicate that you have better quality sleep, or the opposite. When we're having when it's kind of like 6 a.m. and we're like drifting in and out of sleep, oftentimes we have a lot of dreams. Actually, it's not that we have a lot of dreams, it's that we recall more of them. So when we have like poor quality, broken up sleep, something wakes us up many, many times, that can lead to more dream recall. So a lot of dreaming can also mean that you have poor quality sleep. So it's really tricky to say if it's a good thing or not a good thing. Now, can you dream without hitting deep sleep? Yes, REM sleep. So deep sleep happens in the early part of the night, also known as delta sleep or stage 3 sleep. And REM sleep happens in the latter part of the night. But we actually dream all the time. Or actually, nobody knows if we dream all the time or not. But what we know is about dream recall. Like if you wake somebody up from REM sleep, then something, I can't remember exactly, but something like 50 to 70% of the time that person will say, yes, I had a dream. If you wake somebody up from another sleep stage, then 20 to 30% of the time, something like that, they will say I had a dream. So it can definitely happen in all sleep stages. And then I have dreams. Why do I feel still not rested, with pressure in my head, super dizzy, tired and things like that? A lot of times, I have several thoughts on this one. One is, yes, of course, insomnia, not sleeping well, can cause you to be tired, but so can other things. It's really important to explore that, because when we feel like how much I sleep is like the only thing that determines how I feel during the day, then we put sleep on a pedestal. We sleep becomes so important. It becomes something we feel like we really have to get that sleep, or else we're going to be tired. And that puts so much pressure on sleep. So it's always good to explore, like, could there be other reasons why I'm tired? To what percentage of it is sleep related? Is it 50%? Is it 25%? And is it what is it? Because there may be other things that can cause us to be tired, like deconditioning, like we're not active, we're not outside, we're not physically active, or we, there could be other things that cause us to be tired. And then there may be other things we can do to feel less tired. Another thing is hyperarousal. Hyperarousal is when your mind is kind of at a very alert and active state, and that often leads us to notice things that we wouldn't otherwise, like this little tingling that is happening in our legs that we wouldn't even notice. Now when we're hyperaroused, it's like, oh, that's annoying. Pressure, pain, twitches, itches, things like that. Everything becomes like amplified when we are in like the hyperarousal state, and when things kind of settle down, when insomnia kind of becomes less prominent, when we start sleeping better, we feel less hyperaroused. A lot of things just go away. That's another thing to comment on. And I felt there was maybe one more thing, but no, I think that's it. Okay, I've done sleep restriction for about a full month. I'm still getting nights with no sleep. I wake up several times. Sleep efficiency is 40%. Yeah, it's hard. It's really, really hard. I definitely have something to say about that, but let's see if there were other more specific questions here. That I read that you cannot dream without sleep. Is that correct? Yeah, that I feel that's correct. If you are if you're dreaming and you're awake, that's basically like having a hallucination, which we would know that's like, oh, that's bizarre. So yeah, I think you can't dream without sleep. That is correct. My sleep window is about 6 hours, and I'm sleeping about 2 Is it too long of a window? Oh yeah, that's a very good and question I get a lot, which is like, okay, I'm still having a poor sleep efficiency. Don't sleep long. Should I spend less time in bed? Well, obviously you have your coach. I would say that's somebody that knows you, I'm sure, pretty well. So talk to that coach. But my general take on this is like, it's reasonable to spend less time in bed, but oftentimes I feel like it's not the answer, if you will. It's oftentimes better to say, no, I'm going to stick with what I'm doing now and work on shifting attention. And I'm going to get back to that one because I think that's a super big one. You said sometimes I get up kind of 40 minutes past my wake up time. That could definitely be something to work on. I really believe it is important to keep a pretty fixed wake up time and get up early, and then so that's something to consider. But to say, like you said here, should I overall what should we be doing? I think here's my thinking. I think the first 2 to 3 weeks of working with like a sleep coach or a psychiatrist or a psychologist or anybody that's doing, good quality work with insomnia, which is like, in my opinion, which is like CBTI or mindfulness based therapy or ACT or things like that. The first phase is like just learning about sleep, implementing techniques, kind of working, having a sleep log, etc. But once you kind of understand the principles, then I feel like the next step really is attention shifting. That's a huge one. And that could be anything, like anything that takes your attention away from your trouble sleeping, I feel is so important. Again, I think if you have if there are things that you've thought about, like, oh, I wish I could do this, but I can't because I have so much trouble sleeping, do that thing. Even if you feel super tired, try to do that thing. If you're canceling things because of trouble sleeping, like social events, meeting friends, like try not to do that. Try to be out there, talk to people, like meet people, socialize. That's so important. But basically anything that you enjoy doing, that you want to do, that takes attention away from sleep, I think that is such so helpful, really. Okay, I think that was it. Isabel, thanks so much for sharing. This is so important to be able to answer questions like these, because again, so many other people have them. And anybody out there who feels like this podcast is helpful, please consider rating it on iTunes. That is super helpful. Comments and emails again are so important. Please send me those. If you feel like you have everything you need to move forward, that is great. If you happen to have an iPhone and you're like, I think I would like to work with Daniel, then please download Bedtime with a Y, BEDTIME, in which I've created a curriculum which I think is really great, and I'm there to coach as well. And if you have an Android, we are working on that. Hopefully in 4 months or so it is out there. Okay, that said, it is Friday today, so I hope you have a really nice weekend, everyone. And I shall be back on Monday. Until then, take it easy. Bye-bye.